46 years ago today, the SS Edmund Fitzgerald sank in Lake Superior. All 29 crew members aboard died.
For nearly 50 years, people believed the SS Edmund Fitzgerald was simply overpowered by a storm. But a new underwater scan just exposed something far more disturbing. A hidden design flaw that turned one of the most trusted ships on the Great Lakes into a silent trap. And once you see what was found on the lake bed, the thinking makes terrifying sense. The SS Edmund Fitzgerald wasn't just another cargo ship on the Great Lakes. She was the ship. When she entered service in the late 1950s, she immediately stood apart. Longer, heavier, and faster than anything else on the water. She didn't just move cargo, she set records doing it. But what made the Fitzgerald special wasn't her size, it was her reputation. For years, she faced storms that forced other ships to turn back, and she came through without a scratch. Sailors talked about her like she was alive, reliable, strong, predictable. Watching her glide past shorelines became a spectacle. People gathered just to hear her horn roll across the water. That trust extended to the men who ran her. The crew took pride in being assigned to the Fitz. Many stayed for years, refusing transfers to newer vessels. Working aboard her wasn't just a paycheck, it was a badge of honor. And then there was Captain Ernest McSorley, quiet, methodical, a veteran with more than 4 decades on the lakes. He wasn't the kind of captain who chased danger, but he didn't fear it either. He knew Lake Superior's moods better than most people knew their own neighborhoods. When McSorley was on the bridge, crews felt safe. That confidence shaped every decision. Storms weren't avoided, they were managed. Problems weren't panicked over, they were handled. But that level of trust carries a hidden risk, because when everyone believes something can handle anything, the smallest warning signs don't feel urgent. And on Lake Superior in November, that's when trouble starts. Lake Superior doesn't behave like the ocean. It's colder, tighter, and far less forgiving. In November, the lake is caught between seasons. Summer warms trap below, while Arctic air crashes in from the north. That collision turns the surface into chaos. Sailors have a name for it: the Witch of November. These storms don't roll in gently, they explode. Winds can jump to hurricane force in hours, whipping waves into steep, towering walls of water that crash one after another, with almost no space between them. Unlike ocean swells, there's no rhythm, just relentless impact. What makes Lake Superior especially dangerous is depth. The lake is so deep that storms can build massive energy without warning, then unleash it all at once. Waves rebound off shorelines and cliffs, stacking on top of each other and creating unpredictable patterns that even experienced captains struggle to read. By early November 1975, those conditions were already forming. Weather reports warned of a powerful system strengthening faster than expected. Snow, freezing spray, and violent winds were all on the forecast, but late-season storms were nothing new. Ships had schedules to keep, contracts to meet, and cargo that had to move. The Fitzgerald had faced worse, or so everyone believed, because storms don't announce when they're different, and this one was about to reveal just how unforgiving the Witch of November could be. As the storm tightened its grip on Lake Superior, the Edmund Fitzgerald stayed in steady radio contact with another freighter nearby, the Arthur M. Anderson. The two ships weren't racing the storm, they were enduring it together. What stood out later wasn't panic, it was calm. Captain Ernest McSorley's voice came through the radio clear and controlled, exactly what you'd expect from a man with decades on the lakes. But buried inside his updates were details that, in hindsight, carried real weight. The ship had developed a list. It wasn't severe, but it was noticeable. Some vent covers had been lost, a railing had taken damage. Then came a more serious problem. The Fitzgerald's radar had gone dark. Individually, none of those issues sounded fatal. Ships lose equipment in heavy weather, steel bends, electronics fail, and McSorley made it clear the pumps were handling the water coming in. But those reports pointed to something deeper. Losing vent covers meant the ship's internal systems were being exposed directly to the storm. A list meant weightless shifting somewhere it shouldn't, and without radar, the Fitzgerald was navigating blind through waves taller than houses. Still, there was no distress call, no urgency in his voice. From the bridge, the situation felt manageable. What McSorley couldn't see was what was happening below the deck, because the most dangerous problems weren't loud or dramatic, they were silent, and they were getting worse by the minute. As daylight faded on November 10th, the storm showed no signs of easing. Snow and freezing spray swallowed the lake, and visibility dropped to almost nothing. nothing. The Arthur M. Anderson continued tracking the Fitzgerald by radar, watching the blip fight its way through the chaos. Then came the final check-in. At around 7:10 p.m., the Anderson radioed over, asking how the Fitzgerald was holding up. Captain McSorley's reply was calm, almost reassuring. "We are holding our own." Those were the last words anyone would ever hear from the SS Edmund Fitzgerald. Minutes later, the radar screen changed. The blip, representing a 729-foot steel giant, simply vanished. No gradual fade, no distress signal, just gone. There was no mayday call, no emergency flare, no time for the crew to react. When the storm finally eased enough for a search, the lake gave back almost nothing. A few lifeboats, damaged rafts, all empty, all silent. It was as if the Fitzgerald had dropped straight through the water. The speed of the disappearance terrified investigators. Ships don't vanish like that unless something catastrophic happens all at once, and whatever took the Fitzgerald didn't leave the crew a single second to warn the world. Days after the Fitzgerald vanished, search crews finally located the wreck on the floor of Lake Superior. It rested more than 500 feet below the surface, locked in freezing darkness. What they found stunned everyone. The ship wasn't lying intact. It was broken in two. The bow sat upright in the mud, almost eerily preserved. The stern, however, lay upside down, twisted and shattered, separated by hundreds of feet. For a vessel built to withstand the worst conditions the Great Lakes could offer, this made no sense. Ships of that size don't snap cleanly in half without warning. The U.S. Coast Guard released an official conclusion not long after. The report stated the most likely cause was flooding through damaged or improperly secured hatch covers. Massive waves, they argued, had overwhelmed the deck, allowing water to pour into the cargo holds until the ship's structure failed. But that explanation carried an uncomfortable implication. It suggested human error. Families of the crew pushed back immediately. So did sailors across the Great Lakes. The Fitzgerald wasn't known for sloppy procedures, and McSorley wasn't the kind of captain who ignored safety. For decades, that tension lingered. The lake had claimed the ship, but the truth about why it happened was still buried below the surface. For years, the wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald sat untouched, preserved by cold, darkness, and death. Early dives captured only blurry images, enough to confirm the ship's location, but not enough to explain how it failed so quickly. That changed decades later. A new expedition returned to the site with technology that didn't exist in 1975. Instead of grainy cameras, they deployed a remotely operated vehicle, a deep-water drone built for forensic work. It carried powerful lights, AI-assisted scanners, and ultra-clear 4K cameras designed to document every inch of steel. As the drone descended through more than 500 feet of black water, the control room fell silent. Then, the bow of the Fitzgerald emerged from the darkness. The images were haunting. The ship didn't look like it had exploded or collided. The steel looked bent, twisted, and torn apart by enormous force. Silt covered the deck like a blanket, frozen in time. Investigators focused on the hatch covers, the center of the long-running debate. Each hatch was supposed to be secured by heavy steel clamps, the ship's first and last line of defense against the lake. As the camera moved closer, something unsettling became obvious. Clamps were missing. Not loose, not broken, gone. Hatch after hatch showed the same pattern. Bare mounting points, bent steel, metal peeled backward as if something had ripped the clamps away. This wasn't crew error. It was failure under extreme pressure. And the drone was about to reveal something even more disturbing. As the drone continued its slow sweep across the forward section of the wreck, the cameras locked onto something investigators hadn't fully understood before. A circular opening in the deck. At first glance, it didn't look dramatic, just a hole. But this wasn't random damage. It was the base of an air vent, a pipe designed to release pressure from the cargo holds as they were filled. The pipe itself was gone, sheared clean off by force so violent it left jagged steel behind. That opening led straight into the heart of the ship. In the conditions the Fitzgerald faced that night, waves reaching 30 feet or more would have driven water directly into that opening again and again. Not in splashes, in surges, thousands of gallons at a time, pouring below deck where no one could see. Engineers ran the numbers. With that vent destroyed and the hatch system already compromised, the ship would have been taking on water faster than the pumps could ever remove it. And the cargo made it worse. The iron ore pellets acted like a sponge, absorbing water and silently adding weight to the bow. From the bridge, everything still looked controllable. A list, yes. Heavy seas, absolutely. But nothing that screamed emergency. That's why McSorley's last transmission was calm. The Fitzgerald wasn't sinking all at once. It was drowning, slowly, invisibly, until physics took over. As the bow grew heavier, it rode lower in the waves, plunging deeper with every swell. One hard impact was all it took. The stern lifted, the bow dove, and the ship was torn apart in seconds. The crew never stood a chance. But even with this evidence, not everyone is ready to let the story end there. Even with the drone revealing the fatal flaws, some questions linger. The official report pointed to flooding and structural weakness, but that explanation hasn't satisfied everyone. Some marine theorists believe there's more, far more, to the Fitzgerald's final moments. One idea is the infamous Three Sisters. These are massive, sequential waves that can build in Lake Superior under the right conditions. The theory suggests the first two waves struck the deck, already weakened by water, and the third wave delivered the final crushing blow. It's dramatic, but possible. A perfect storm within a storm. Others turn to physics. Could the storm's rhythm have caused structural resonance? A long steel ship has natural frequencies, and under certain wave patterns, the lake could have literally vibrated the Fitzgerald apart. It's not just theory. Engineers have recreated similar scenarios in models, showing how the steel could fail in minutes under perfect conditions. Even stranger theories linger. Some point to Lake Superior's known magnetic anomalies, suggesting unusual forces could have disrupted electronics, disoriented crews, and exerted torsional stress on the hull. It borders on science fiction, but with the speed of the sinking, some are willing to explore every possibility. And then there's human fascination. People can't let go of a mystery this complete. When a legendary ship disappears without a trace, imagination fills the gaps. Ghost stories, rogue waves, hidden forces, the Fitzgerald's legend grows as the lake keeps its secrets. Whatever the explanation, one thing is clear. The ship itself was no longer a safe vessel. The flaws exposed by modern technology prove that even a trusted giant can fail under conditions nobody fully understood. And sometimes, the lake claims what it wants, no matter how carefully you prepare. The Edmund Fitzgerald was more than steel and rivets. For her crew, she was home, livelihood, and pride all in one. For decades, sailors spoke of her as a reliable giant, a ship that could survive almost anything Lake Superior threw at her. And yet, all that trust couldn't save her. The flaws buried in her design, the missing clamps, the sheared vent, these weren't mistakes anyone could have prevented in the storm. The lake simply revealed the hidden weaknesses at the worst possible moment. Even with modern technology exposing the truth, there's a haunting quiet in knowing what happened. No heroics could have altered the outcome. The 29 men on board faced a disaster they didn't fully see coming. Their calm, methodical actions, led by a captain with decades of experience, weren't failures. They were simply powerless against forces both natural and mechanical. Today, the wreck lies 530 feet beneath the surface, a frozen time capsule. The lake keeps its secrets well. It shows us evidence, yet it hides the full story in darkness, pressure, and cold. And maybe that's why the legend endures, not just as a tale of tragedy, but as a reminder of nature's unforgiving power and the fragile line between trust and catastrophe. For some, knowing the cause might bring closure. For others, it only deepens the awe and terror, because Lake Superior doesn't just swallow ships, it keeps their stories intact, haunting, and untold for those willing to look. The story of the Edmund Fitzgerald didn't end in 1975. Its sinking became a legend, a cautionary tale whispered among sailors and immortalized in song. But now, half a century later, technology has finally pulled back the curtain. The ship's secrets, from missing hatch clamps to the fatal vent hole, reveal a disaster far beyond human error. Yet, the fascination continues. People still speculate about rogue waves, unusual forces, and unexplained phenomena. They wonder how a vessel so trusted, so celebrated, could vanish in minutes, leaving nothing but silence in its wake. The Fitzgerald reminds us that no matter how advanced or powerful we think we are, nature and engineering limits have the final word. Ships, no matter how mighty, are only as strong as the weaknesses they carry unseen. And Lake Superior, it never forgets. Even now, divers, historians, and engineers return to its depths, searching for answers. Every image, every scan, every discovery adds another layer to the legend. And while we may understand more than ever before, the story of the Edmund Fitzgerald still carries the chill of the unknown, because some tragedies are never fully explained. They are simply preserved, haunting in the cold, dark water where the mighty once sailed. The Edmund Fitzgerald wasn't just a ship. She was a legend, trusted, massive, and seemingly invincible. She carried her crew with confidence across the Great Lakes for years. Yet, on that November night, hidden flaws and relentless forces turned her into a death trap that no skill, no experience could overcome. Modern technology finally revealed the truth. Missing hatch clamps, a sheared vent, and slow, unseen flooding meant the ship was quietly doomed long before the storm reached its peak. The crew's calm final words weren't denial. They were courage in the face of a disaster they could never fully see. Even now, questions linger. Could rogue waves, structural resonance, or Lake Superior's strange forces have played a role? We may never know completely, and maybe that's part of the Fitzgerald's power as a story. It reminds us that some tragedies are beyond explanation. The ship rests silent, 530 feet below the surface, but her story continues to haunt. The Edmund Fitzgerald teaches us that even the mightiest can fail, that nature is unforgiving, and that some mysteries are meant to endure.